up, guys? Apologies that this video is coming to you a little bit late. I meant to get my review up for Disenchanted last week. However, work was crazy busy for me last week and I just didn't have the time or energy to record. Because you all know how much I love the first Enchanted movie. I did a big, gushy video essay on why the first one is an underrated Disney classic. Anyway, I'm here now to give you my thoughts on Adam Shankman's Disenchanted. Might as well get this out of the way. I wasn't a fan of this film. It's not a disaster. You can tell that they tried to make a loving follow-up to Enchanted, and there is some good stuff to praise about it. But for me, the reason it felt like such a gigantic disappointment is because Disenchanted completely misses the point of what made the first Enchanted film such a treat. Enchanted was a thinly veiled satire about Disney films and fairy tales. It had a playful premise. It took a typical animated Disney princess type, Giselle, played in that film by Amy Adams, and put her in the real world and seeing how she would adapt. It was a fish out of water comedy which gently poked fun of all the tropes and conventions that we've been so used to seeing in Disney movies, but at the same time it also celebrated all those things with catchy, memorable and uplifting songs from the Disney Renaissance songwriting geniuses Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz. Disenchanted, however, is not a satire. It's merely a bread and butter musical about a bored, middle-aged woman having an existential crisis because she moved to the suburbs. And quite frankly, the music is just not as good. So it doesn't have anything to say like the first one did, and the songs aren't as good. That's the thing with Enchanted. There may have only been a handful of songs, but the quality was consistent. There wasn't a single dud song on that soundtrack. Disenchanted, however, has more songs on its soundtrack, but it's definitely a quantity over quality situation with these songs. After this film finished, I couldn't remember a single song. Nothing stuck in my head like the first one did. I had to Google what the titles of the songs were when I was doing the research for this film. I will say I did enjoy the batter duet between Giselle and the Queen Bee villainess Malvina Monroe, playing this film by Rudolph. That song I thought was okay, but I couldn't recite it to you now if you asked me to. And some people on film Twitter are really sticking up for Idina Menzel's song Love Power. I couldn't even tell you how it goes. It's great if you liked it, but Idina Menzel has belted out some iconic songs for Disney movies with Into the Unknown, and of course, Let It Go. I personally would not put Love Power in the same league as those songs. Some of you were asking, could Disenchanted get an Oscar song nomination? I don't see it happening, sorry guys. The film just didn't have that definitive one song that I could see being championed for an Oscar nomination. Sorry. Is the secret ingredient to a memorable Disney song Stephen Schwartz's lyrics? Because Alan Menken still composed the music for Disenchanted, but Stephen Schwartz wasn't involved in this film. So yeah, is Stephen Schwartz's absence from this film the reason why the music feels so much weaker? Whatever you guys have to say about this film's music or its Oscars chances, let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. And normally with a sequel, the director has to up the ante, deliver bigger and bolder and more memorable musical set pieces. But there is nothing in Disenchanted which tops the subversive silliness of Happy Working Song or the grand, ambitious, and awe-inspiring Central Park set That's How You Know number from Enchanted. Nothing even comes close to that magic that Kevin Lima got in the first film, so it all feels rather underwhelming. Adam Shankman's direction overall was a bit flat. Also, the costumes in this aren't as impressive as the first Enchanted. Everything looks noticeably cheaper in this film. But let's talk about some of the good stuff. The best part of this film, for me, was by far and away Amy Adams' performance as Giselle. Arguably, the first Enchanted film is what catapulted Amy Adams into the A-list, so it's really nice to see Amy Adams step back into Giselle's shoes once again, and it seems like she's really happy to be playing the character again. Seeing that joy radiating out of her is infectious. I like that she still retained that sunny disposition and expressive, animated body language that she had in the first film. Like how she sits on a set of stairs like Cinderella would. It's the little details and nuances that Amy Adams adds which makes it such a fun performance to watch. But yeah, it does seem a little odd that after a decade or so of living in reality in New York City that she hasn't become more jaded by the day-to-day struggles of being a real person. Because yeah, let's face it, living in reality is not the same as living in Andalasia. But even though I'm questioning the character growth that she's had between the two movies, I still really love watching Amy Adams' performance. It was a delight to see her having this much fun in a film again. Also, the visual effects have certainly had an upgrade in the 15 years between movies, which you would expect, obviously. But yeah, the little details on like Chip the Chipmunk's fur is more noticeable, it's more detailed. However, I will say there is kind of an over-reliance on CGI in Disenchanted, and I know the first Enchanted movie used CGI as well, but it was used more sparingly in that film. With Disenchanted, I was very aware of how much CGI I was looking at. There was an abundance of it. The set design I also quite liked. Like Giselle and Robert's house in the suburbs had a rustic quality to it, which, made it look kind of like a house you'd expect to see in a Disney animated movie. When it comes to the screenplay, I'll give the writers credit for trying something different. Okay, this isn't a rinse and repeat of the first film. They haven't just recycled the same story from the first film. So yeah, props for like going a different route and trying something different. But they still missed the point of what made the first Enchanted film so special. And they could have done so much more with the story. And that's what bothers me the most. This film had the potential to be amazing. It's actually a sequel I've been asking for, I've been longing to see, because so much has changed in the real world since the first Enchanted movie came out, with Disney movies and rom-coms and romance in general, with technology and apps and all that there was so much potential for more satire in an Enchanted follow-up, but it's not a satire. It's just a generic musical. They could have taken the story in so many more interesting directions than the one we got. We could have seen a story where Giselle is struggling to adapt to the real world as a middle-aged woman, feeling brought down by the struggles of everyday life, like missing the magic of Andalasia, and, seeing the journey of her discovering the joy and magic and meaning of real life. It could have been a story about Giselle and Robert's marriage and how it's not all happily ever after you say I do. It could have deconstructed the whole happy wife, happy life trope. There was so much potential there, but Giselle and Robert's marriage is like an afterthought in this film. In fact, Robert is barely in the story. Patrick Dempsey is given a flat subplot about the ennui of middle-aged life and constantly being on the commute, being a cog in the corporate machine. But after a certain point, all that stuff just kind of gets forgotten about. Also, side note, James Marsden is criminally underutilized in this film as well. His gallant, chivalrous buffoonery was a real highlight of the first film. Sadly, he just doesn't have anything to do here. They also could have done something a bit more unexpected and done a satire about modern dating life. Like if Giselle and Robert hadn't worked out and Giselle had to be single again and navigate the romantic world with like Tinder and Hinge and all that. Yeah, a lot has changed since the first film. The first film came out in 2007, so what? The first iPhone had just come out, and Facebook was a thing, and was definitely like part of, the public sphere. But yeah, social media hadn't become, the massive part of life that it had at that point. So yeah, seeing Giselle adapt to that could have been a fun story. They also could have done a reverse of the first film and had Giselle go back to Andalasia and have a story which celebrates the art and power of 2D animation. And they could have mocked modern Disney movies by making a joke about how Idina Menzel has to sing in all the Disney movies these days. Some nudge nudge wink wink humor. But you see what I mean? Like, I've just pitched 4 different ideas for an Enchanted sequel, which would have been far more interesting and compelling than the one that we got, which just has this lazy magic wand battle of the suburban divas narrative. Out of all the ideas that they had, they thought that was the best one. And that's what really bothers me about this film, is that I feel like I could have done a better job writing the story than what the writers did. So yeah, it just feels like there's so much squandered potential with this Enchanted sequel. And yeah, I'm just really annoyed by that. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? Honestly, no. I didn't get any joy from watching this film. It's just a very diluted down sequel with none of the charm, glee, or heart of the first one. Enchanted is like annual viewing for me, but Disenchanted, never again. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? Well, it's not unwatchable, but I don't recommend it. The first film holds such a special place in my heart, and I know the people that made Disenchanted went into making it with good intentions. The problem is those that made Disenchanted fundamentally don't understand what made the first Enchanted film so special. I was left severely disappointed by this film, but I suppose there are worse ways to spend 2 hours. It's on Disney Plus, so watch it if you want to, but don't go in expecting the greatness of the first film. And third question, what score to give it out of 10? Despite a joyful performance from Amy Adams, Disenchanted really lives up to the name. It left me feeling disenchanted that this was the sequel we got when it could have been something really amazing. The story is messy, the direction is uninspired, it's got none of the cheeky wit of the first film, beloved characters from the first one are underutilized, and the songs just don't live up to the standard of its predecessor. There's literally no element, apart from maybe visual effects, which improves upon what we got in Enchanted. It is an inferior sequel in pretty much every way. So yeah, Disenchanted ended up being a disappointment. So I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 10. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I do want to hear from you guys. Have you seen Disenchanted? If you have, what do you think of it? Am I being too harsh? Whatever you have to say about this film, let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. If you have enjoyed this video, help me out by hitting that little thumbs up button. For more movie, TV, and Oscars related content, don't forget to click subscribe, and if you want to follow me on any of my socials, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, it's all in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Carefield, and I'll see you next time.